Welcome to Beyond the Scenes, the daily show podcast that goes a little deeper into the segments and topics that originally aired on the show. This is what this podcast is. We're basically the toy at the bottom of the box of cereal. You know, you get some Crunch Berries and then, you almost eat the toy because it's right there in the bowl. And it's like a little car or some hologram sticker or a decoder ring. Yeah, a decoder ring. That's what we do. We dig to the bottom and we help you decode the Daily Show. Today, we're going to be decoding a piece that aired on the show back in April of 2021. It's about how the pandemic disproportionately affected women in the workplace. Here's the clip.
The COVID-19 pandemic has ravaged the U.S. economy with millions out of work. And much like underwire and microblading, it's disproportionately hurting women. Economist Olga Shurkoff told me why.
Since February 2020, about 2.5 million women left the workforce.
2.5 million.
That's right. 80% of net job losses.
Wow, even when it comes to unemployment, women are overachieving.
For decades, women have been chipping away at the glass ceiling, joining the labor force in greater numbers with each year, until the pandemic, which has reduced the percentage of working women to 1988 levels. The question is, why is this happening?
Joining us to help go beyond the scenes on this issue is Daily Show segment director Sarah Hamblin and Daily Show correspondent Desi Lydic. How are you two ladies doing today? A wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day to you.
Wonderful day to you, Roy.
You as well.
I just want to thank you for allowing me as a man to even be in your space, for all the wonderful things you are doing for women.
Well, we'll smudge it afterwards with some sage.
Some sage. We'll sage it. Even though it's still remote, we still got to sage remote.
Fair enough.
Mercury's in retrograde, so
anything can happen.
Also joining us from the great state of Washington, she's a senator who's been working on this issue since she first ran for office. Senator Patty Murray, first off, thank you for coming on. Thank you to all of the wonderful ladies being a part of this, because as a man, I'm extremely underqualified to even be talking about this. I should just push back from the table. Why are women leaving the workforce? They say that the issue, one of the many issues is affordable childcare. Can you run us through some of the issues that working parents are facing right now?
Well, working parents for a very long time, long before the pandemic, struggled with how do I go to work and make sure my kids are okay, they're safe, and I can focus on my work. But it was sort of a silent epidemic because you didn't want to complain about it or you feared losing your job. But the pandemic really ripped this wide open when all of a sudden childcare facilities themselves, as rare as they were, shut down because they couldn't provide childcare for fewer people who were there. And they had to all of a sudden do the same thing everybody else did. They had to wipe everything down. They had to have fewer kids there. They couldn't afford to do it. Their staff couldn't show up. And it just made this whole epidemic of lack of childcare in this country visible to everyone. Meanwhile, if you were a nurse and had to be at work, if you were an essential worker of any kind and had to be at work, you didn't have a place to send your kids. So now as we come out of this pandemic, hopefully, people want to go back to work. There are no childcare facilities for them to go to. We have huge childcare deserts in this country, and the cost is overwhelming. So this has become finally an open topic in this country that we recognize we have to deal with.
Desi, if I'm not mistaken, you were pregnant, right? When you started the Daily Show?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I was not just eating too many burritos, although I was also eating too many burritos.
Oh, my goodness gracious. And I don't know if we've ever talked about this as fellow correspondents. Was there ever a feeling that your pregnancy would have been a hindrance to you potentially getting this job?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The Daily Show was a dream job, a total dream of mine for many, many years. And I auditioned for the show a couple of times. And when I put my tape together this last time, I was not pregnant. I had just gotten married and we were kind of in the beginning stages of talking about it. But by the time I got the call to fly to New York and meet Trevor, I was pregnant. I was 4 months pregnant. And I remember having the conversation with my husband, with my agent, my manager at the time, going like, can I and should I bring this up. I mean, do I owe anyone this information?
Yeah.
That's up for discussion. And when it came down to it, at the end of the day, I was going to be showing up on day one, 6 months pregnant on camera. And I thought, I'm going to let them know because it's just the honest truth. And fortunately for me, Jen Flans, our executive producer, and the whole team was like, great, wonderful. You can use it. You can not use it for comedy, whatever you want. And that was really freeing. And that's the way it should be, but it's just often not.
Senator, how do we fix these issues that the parents are facing? Because there seems to be, there's a lot of issues with just the economics of this. Is it a government issue, or is it individual employers doing what they need to do to try and fix this?
Well, for a long time in this country, it's just been you're on your own. You deal with your own kids. We're not going to deal with them. We found out that did not work because women can't be at work, or they're worried about their kids, or kids are in unsafe places. And as we see right now, it's hurting our whole economy. So this has to be something we have to all be in for. And that's what we are working towards right now, passing legislation to, first of all, we got to build childcare centers. There just isn't enough. We can't just say, okay, everybody, you can go get it now, government program. Well, there's nowhere to go. So first we have to invest in building childcare systems through government support to build them. And then we have to make sure people can afford them. And we are going to implement that, hopefully, if we can get this passed, by looking at what people can afford and what they cannot afford, especially lower income or middle income women, by having a federal subsidy to make sure that they can afford it.
You've been working on childcare since the 90s. Over time, what have been some changes to the conversation around working parents, Senator?
Well, first of all, I really identified with what Desi said when she said she had to decide whether to even tell anybody if she was pregnant, let alone have a child and you need childcare. It's what every woman goes through.
Conversely, not to cut you off, but conversely, I found out a month later after being hired at The Daily Show that I had a child on the way. And I just went to Trevor, hey, man, baby's coming. Anyway, what's next?
Yeah. Well, and let me tell you, when I decided to run for the Senate U.S. Senate back in 1992, I brought some people to my house to convince them why I was the right person to do this. And they all listened politely. And this gentleman looks at me and he goes, what are you going to do with the Bambinos? And my first reaction is, Bambinos? I don't have any Bambinos. Oh, my kids? And my second reaction was, do you ask men this question who are running for public office? And my third was my actual response that came out of my mouth, which is, that's exactly why I'm running for the Senate. Because just like every woman who works in a grocery store, we need to have childcare for people in this country so that they can go do the jobs that we need them to do.
Sarah, how much of a concern has it been for you? Because I guess it's kind of twofold, because there is, I'm having a baby on the way into getting a job versus I'm already on this job and deciding when to start a family. During your tenure on The Daily Show, you have welcomed a wonderful, wonderful, lovely child. How much did the considerations of work weigh into when to start your family, between you and your husband?
Yeah, I mean, that was a big question for us. And I think it's stressful as a woman. I think also, I want to say the entertainment industry can be very sexist. And so there's just a lot of fears of taking that time to have a baby, hitting that pause on career. I have a lot of female friends in entertainment who had a baby and then kind of came back to a job that was like 2-3 rungs down the ladder, or they just couldn't get back into the industry. And I think, for us, I remember when we started talking about it, when I eventually was pregnant, I was not telling anyone. And then I told Jen Flans, our executive producer, because I was potentially doing another outside project. And I was worried about, okay, if they allow me to have time off for that, and then I'm like, surprise, I'm going to need more time off in 6 months. Am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to seem like a bad worker? And it's crazy, Generally, a lot of people want to have kids, and you shouldn't feel like you have to choose, but there is a fear of, not being taken seriously and not being able to have opportunities as a woman when you have a child.
Senator, I know our time with you is limited, so I want to end real quick with 2 questions for you here. Number one, outside of childcare, what are some of the other issues that are affecting women in the workplace? And what can employers do until the government can do what they need to do? What can employers do to help fix some of those issues?
Well, first of all, they can tell Congress to get the job done and have an economy in this country that actually works for women and men to participate in. You shouldn't have to say, can I ask for this job in the future? Can I get a promotion because I have kids? I will assure you, men don't think that way. But women have to, because we are the caregivers more often than not. So we need employers standing up. We need businesses standing up and saying, I need a workforce. I need to be able to have a childcare system we can rely on. And that's what our country's about. We need you to take action. The other issue that's so important that you kind of just heard about was family leave. It shouldn't be a question of whether you can take time off, and it might hurt your career, or it might hurt a promotion, or you might not be as good as the person next to you if you decide to have a kid. It should be, oh, that's great for our country. That's great for our economy. That's great for your family. What can we do to support that? And every other industrialized nation has family and medical leave. So you can take that time off, you can focus on what you need to do, and come back to a career that helps you support your family and really helps our country be successful. So, those are the 2 quick policies that I would say are most important. And again, what businesses need to do is stand up and quit saying it's their problem. It's business's problem. They cannot survive if we don't have women in the workforce today. It hurts everybody.
Can I sneak in and just ask a quick question? I feel like we're talking about the problems of this, but I feel like as a mother, you do kind of get some superpowers in terms of learning about negotiation, learning about people's how to work with people who are maybe irrational.
How to multitask. Yeah.
Yeah. I would just love to hear just personally what your experience as a parent, those superpowers, and how that's helped you in the U.S. Senate, which is, I'm sure, filled with characters.
Well, not only was I a parent, but I was a preschool teacher. So I learned to deal with bullies a long time ago. But I also learned you can't just inject your own personality on somebody and that they react well. You actually have to sit back and listen. What is it my child is actually saying to me? What do they really want? And how can I have us both be winners and come out of this without a tantrum? And so I use those skills all the time in trying to pass legislation and get things done and listen to other people and respect other people. I think that's been really important. And I learned how to deal with stuff happening in the background, just like all of you do. I remember one time, I'll just share quickly, I was in the Senate and I was on the phone at home with my daughter, who was quite young, with the governor of our state, with this really critical conversation. I was trying to talk him into something. And my daughter is pulling on my jacket and, just doing this whole routine under my arm. And finally she walked away and she came back like 3 minutes later with this little note. And she was young, and it was SAMPUKT. And I'm trying to read it, talk to the governor, focus on what I'm doing. Sam was our dog. Sam puked. And I'm totally lost my focus with the governor, trying to think of what mess was out there. I mean, this is what you do as a legislator. You have stuff happening all over, and you have to be able to kind of deal with it and move forward. So yeah, I've learned a lot by being a parent. So is every parent.
Well, I hope Sam is okay. Senator Patty Murray.
It was more like my living room rug, but yeah.
Stain never came out.
We'll send you one as a thank you for going beyond the scenes with us. Just let us know the dimensions, whatever you need.
Thank
Desi,
you.
put it on your card. Senator Patty Murray.
You got it.
Thank you for going beyond the scenes with us.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Senator.
After the break, Sarah, Desi, we're going to talk more about how you all put this piece together, and I'm just going to sit back as a man and enjoy and learn. Before we dig into how you all came about creating this piece, I do want to say thank you one more time to Senator Patty Murray for giving us a little bit of her time. And I have to compliment, she had one of them, was it just me or did she have one of them official get some shit done chairs in her office?
Oh, yeah.
That high back leather, it looks like a judge chair, but it's in her office.
You can't be online shopping in that chair. You're like really getting shit done. See, I could never have a chair like that because then I wouldn't be able to get away with all the nonsense that I sit and do in my office.
Yeah, I have to sit in an $80 ergonomic from Staples, and it makes me feel like I can do other things with my life. Sarah, I'll start with you just on the piece in general. You know, we've talked about this before on the podcast, just in how so many different people in the building can pour into a creative pot to create the mold of what the story will eventually be when it goes out the door. How did this story, walk me through the early germination of this piece?
Yeah, of course. So it's funny, it actually came from my virtual mom group because I had a baby during COVID. And so I didn't have like a real life mom group. I have a WhatsApp group of moms that I talk to. And one of the moms posted this article about a scientist who was studying COVID and she was studying infectious disease in incarcerated populations. And she was a medical doctor and she had to stop working to take care of her kids.
The pandemic is one of the reasons that I just needed to step back from my research. We lost childcare for several months.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear. There was a bit of something in the background.
That's my 3-year-old son with a Lego train car.
Sorry, hold on. No, I think it's my background. Is that the trash compactor?
My research has been focused on infectious disease and incarcerated populations. And so I was looking at sort of how can we improve testing and support for these individuals who are very vulnerable to getting infected.
So you were researching COVID and you had to take a step back?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very difficult decision.
God, think of all that you could have accomplished in this past year if you had full-time COVID-safe childcare. Like, I know for me, I just know I would have been able to finish my one-woman show from home, Homelton. My whole life is in this room where it happens, this room where it happens, this room where it happens.
Yeah, art is important.
It was just such a shocking story to me, like that, you know, not only are women leaving the workforce, but here's this woman who is an infectious disease researcher and a medical doctor, two things we really need right now in this pandemic. And, you know, she can't do her job because she has to do childcare. And I felt like, you know, that story just really resonated because were just so in between a rock and a hard place in terms of how to handle childcare in this pandemic. And it didn't feel like there was a lot of outside support. And I think like when we were talking about this story and how to tell this story, there's not like a clear bad guy. There's not some boogeyman. There's not some easy solution. But I think one solution was just bringing some awareness so women who were going through this didn't have to feel so terrible and isolated. And also, and I should say not just women, people. I mean, there are plenty of, you know, caregivers who don't identify or aren't women. But just wanting people to feel a little less alone. And also for the people who aren't going through this to be like, hey, stop getting mad at your employee for having their kids in the background. They have to, and you're lucky they're at work right now.
And people getting ridden up.
At least that's what I wanted to tell Trevor.
Yeah. Desi, what was the segment? I know your child has walked in a couple of times. My son is finally at the age where he sees the camera and the tripod and he goes, oh my God. And he'll just come in and negotiate snacks. Like my son is smart now.
Same.
He knows, hey, like as soon as I'm setting up the tripod, he just goes, snacks? Like
yeah,
he's
my kid
like
too.
a mob boss. That's what you're headed towards, Sarah. Just a little mob boss walking in your room. Hey,
It's true.
be ashamed if somebody messed up your shop. Huh?
How about a lollipop? Yeah, my kid too. He goes like, ugh, mommy's doing bits again. Can I have candy? Can I have candy? Can I have candy? Until I just give up and say yes every time.
Even women who are still working are experiencing sort of hidden burdens that they're doing this dual role.
Can I have a snack? No, you can't have a snack. You just ate. Can't have a snack.
They have to work and at the same time take care of their children.
What has your experience been, Desi? When the story was brought to you, was it like an instant light bulb of like, yes, this is exactly what people need to know? Because Sarah's right. This isn't a piece with a clear cut, here is the person or thing preventing the solution from happening. It's a systemic, layered ass issue. So Sarah sees that in the mom's group. She types up the pitch in the email. You read it. What are your thoughts?
I'm just like, oh, great. This will be something that I'm like dying to talk about. It's something that I'm experiencing on some lesser level to a certain extent. Sarah's experiencing. And like at that time, we were pretty early in the pandemic. And my biggest concern was juggling my son and his online school and doing shoots and trying to manage everything at the same time. And when Sarah and I started talking about this from like a creative perspective, we were like, let's just let it roll. Let's just, if we have interruptions, if the kids run in, if you have to nurse, whatever we got to do, we're just going to let it roll. It's all staying in. And it was such a relief.
If we would like to see things get better, we need institutions, policymakers to pay attention to childcare and expand access to childcare.
Shoot, I had a question off of that, actually. Sorry, maybe my producer, Sarah. The question off of the women.
I definitely have it written down in here. I remember when we came up with that question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, you got your hands full. It's okay.
Oh boy. Okay, I come prepared. Here we go. But mommy's working.
It was probably like one of the more honest pieces I've ever been able to do on the show. And like Sarah said, like this is not an issue that just suddenly started during the pandemic. This has been an issue for quite some time, that childcare in this country is such a problem. And that women do often shoulder the burden of juggling caretaking and the responsibilities at work. But the pandemic certainly brought it to the forefront, and with our doctor that we spoke to, Dr. Methalingam, like that was such a crazy circumstance where here she's maybe going to be the one to help us get through this pandemic, and she has to put her work off to the side.
Yeah, sorry about that pandemic, but my dog puked in the carpet, so I have to go deal with that right now. As a man,
go on.
I'll tell you a story and then I'll ask a question. So you all know my lovely partner. You know her and love her. And so we were going through a period a couple years ago where we were trying to find childcare. We were trying to find more stable childcare. And, like, hey, we need to find some childcare. And, as a man, all right, I'm on it. I'll get to it. And I'll be honest, as a man, I wasn't as thorough as I needed to be in communicating, hey, I emailed this person. And so there was the wires were crossed, and we were kind of starting to email and message the same people who had already said, I can't do it. I already have a job. And the longer it took, the more I realized just how much of her day and I didn't know this until this is way after the fact, how much of her day she had spent just trying to make sure that childcare was straight, and it was one of those like, damn, I'm a bad man moment. But you understand that childcare is important, but just even the act of finding it is a deviation from your employment and from your work and the things that she wanted to do. How can men be more open to these issues? How do we open the eyes of more men to what their female colleagues at their job are going through, and especially even these senators, because it's going to be a bunch of men voting on Senator Patty's bill. So, how do we open men? Because I think we are dumb, men are dumb, And a lot of us just lack a general unawareness of all of the layers of the issues that women in the workplace deal with. So what are some things that could be done to help make men a little bit more aware, especially the non-dads? I'm a dad and I still had a blind spot.
Well, I mean, it's so funny hearing you say that. Like, it's not just men. Like, I remember before I was a parent, I worked with a producer on a show, and I was like directing segments, and I would only get one prep day, and she was supposed to prep me on like what I was shooting. And I would get frustrated because she would leave early. Like, she would leave at like 5 o'clock, which isn't really early, but she had to get home and see her kid. And I was like, this is the one day I'm in the office and you have to leave at 5. Like, I took it very personally. And now that I'm a parent, I'm just like, oh my God, Erin, I'm so sorry. I was always nice. I mean, I was never, it was more of a resentment that I had than like really saying anything. But now I totally get it. Like, people should be able to get off work at 5. And I do feel like, in terms of educating men, I hope that the pandemic and so many, you know, fathers and parents who are the primary wage earner, you know, them working from home, they've been able to see a little bit more behind the scenes and see like how much work actually goes into childcare, because we really don't value the contribution, especially of like stay-at-home parents, but also, you know, part-time working parents, parents working from home. Like, it's hard.
And having the support from your employer, not just the government, but your employer, in terms of having parental leave, and calling it parental leave, not necessarily maternity, paternity, to encourage fathers to take the same amount of time off, or to kind of equalize the amount of time that they're spending at home with the children. The more men are encouraged to take that family time, that caregiving time, the better off we all are, the more it levels the playing field all around. That being said, Roy, I have seen you father, and you are a very good father. You're extremely involved. I know you take on a lot of those duties.
Yeah, but I'm still blind to the fact that sometimes it takes all day to find childcare, and you have to deviate from a couple conference calls because you're meeting babysitters, and that's some stuff that I could have done because I was in my office playing PlayStation with Ronnie Chang.
He can be very convincing.
That is a true story.
Very convincing. The managing of the household is
I was oblivious.
a huge.
I was oblivious.
No, it is. It goes beyond like picking up toilet paper on the way home from work, or signing a permission slip. It really is the managing of the household duties takes a lot of time. So the more you can kind of talk things out and divvy up the responsibilities, the easier it is for everybody.
I spoke with a woman, Elaine Davis, and she does a lot of advisement, to corporations and things of that nature. And Elaine mentioned something that I thought was very interesting as well, is that employers should also, if it's the type of job that doesn't have to be 9 to 5, you physically need to be there, but you don't physically have to be there at 9, then coming up with a little more flex scheduling and giving employees the option, like where some employers now are starting to give employees, hey, you know what? Take 2 to 3:30, go pick up your kid, take them home, have a bonding moment, watch Paw Patrol, and come on back here at 4 o'clock and work until 6 instead of working until 5. And so I think there's little things that employers could do. After the break, I want to hear what you all learned from other mothers who are also dealing with this. We've talked to the two of you. I would love to know more about what women all over the world, at least America, at least New York. All right, at least Manhattan. Can we do that? All right, we'll do that after the break. This is Beyond the Scenes. Desi, in talking to other mothers, what were some of the similarities and differences in the experiences that you all have with this issue of finding decent childcare?
Yeah, I think it was just a really difficult time early on in the pandemic finding any childcare facilities that were open and could take children. Most of them were not open. Most of them were not available. A lot of people didn't have access to them. And some of my friends are doctors and needed to work at that time. I mean, they were so needed. And one family, a friend of my son's, both the mother and father, were doctors, and they were desperately needed in New York City at the time. And so there were very few places where they could bring their kid in. It was just the second I was starting to get overwhelmed and stressed by the fact that I had to teach my son, homeschool and maybe go off and do bits in the corner for the camera. I'm thinking about my friends who are doctors dealing with real issues. And then not only that, but like coming home and having to protect their kids and worrying about exposure and all of that. So I think it was a very stressful time. And I think it at least brought this issue to the forefront. And people are starting to talk about it more now, which is hopeful.
Sarah, what did the moms group? I'm very curious about this. And I know that these private groups that the women, so my partner, she's in a bunch of these groups.
We call them covens.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure if that's the word I would have used as a man, but fine. You used it, so be it. Did you take this? I'm just asking this out of all curiosity. Did you take this segment and post it back in the group? I know the tendency in some of these internet groups is to keep work separate from the social circles and all of that stuff. But what are they buzzing about now with regards to this issue?
Well, I definitely sent everyone the piece, and then I think maybe one person had time to watch it. So didn't take that personally because now I'm also a parent and I never have time to watch anything. I think actually the big scuttlebutt today is in the mom group is just talking about kids getting sick. The thing that's really hard right now is if your kid has the sniffles or a fever, which is pretty much constant when you have a kid, they have to be out of daycare until they get a negative COVID test. And then if there's a positive COVID test, all the kids have to come out of daycare and everyone has to isolate. Or if there's a COVID case in the daycare, everybody, like daycare gets closed for 10 days. So I think that's been the big frustration right now, which is we have kind of gotten childcare back. There's a vaccine, there's masking, but still, we're faced with these issues.
Desi, when you look at everything that's been going on now surrounding this issue, how much do you talk with your husband about all
Almost
that
never.
you deal with?
Oh, sorry, you weren't done.
Okay. In general, or just on this?
I'm mostly hiding on the bathroom floor, just doing a nice ugly cry, just for a little me time.
I think you confused me with your therapist. I just want to talk about the story you did.
Yes, as you were.
But no, like, how much are you all sharing with your husbands about all of this, and how much are they coming to the table to help alleviate some of the stress of this? How much stress can men really? Because a mom, you have concern, like you worry different from a man as well. Did I finally mess up just now? Did I just
No,
did
you're
I just
great.
cancel myself?
You're right on track.
You chicks,
you're right on track.
You chicks worry too much. So you could be like me.
What are you worrying about? No, my husband, I feel very fortunate in that my husband is very involved in the caretaking responsibilities, almost too involved, where my son is starting to really favor him, and I get a little jealous, and I'm gonna have to insert myself a little more into the situation. But we talk all the time about. We occasionally will catch ourselves having the who's taking him and who's picking him up from school conversation in front of him. And we just recently had to be like, okay, let's download on that after he goes to bed. We'll sort it out. We'll get on the same page. And then it is what it is. There's no discussing or going back and forth. Things like that. I mean, we just try to talk about it constantly. And if I'm feeling overwhelmed by the amount of work that I'm doing within the house, I let him know. He does the same for me. It's not easy. It's a juggle when there are two full-time working parents. I think part of it is also like, as a mother, I know I put a lot of pressure on myself to be the one to do certain things. And that might not even be something that my husband's putting on me. It's generally not. It's what I'm doing to myself and feeling guilty for not being around for certain things. And so that's something I'm trying to work on.
Yeah, I've tried that. I know that there's some of that in our house. So there's a statistic from the New York Times that says, quote, women spend an average of 4 hours a day on unpaid work around the house, grocery shopping, childcare, laundry. Men spend 2.5 hours a day. And I know this to be a lie because I only spend 27 minutes.
And that's more than a lot.
More than a lot. But there is a division of labor in the intangibles and the things that aren't work related that give you the mental bandwidth. And I'll be honest, I try to be that. I don't know. We kind of have well, let me not speak out of turn because she's not on this podcast right now, but I feel like there's a synergy when it comes to cooking versus laundry versus cleaning the house versus playing with the boy when he's got the new Lego set. And like what I try to do, because I'm out of town more than she is. So when I'm in town, I try to do all the shit because I know when I'm gone, you have to do all the shit. Is that the agreement in your home, Sarah?
Wait, we just experienced that. Actually, I was just doing the Water Witches piece with Costa, and I purposely scheduled that to be as quick as possible. It would only be 30 hours away. So it was like fly out, shoot, fly back on a red eye. And it was so tough because I got home that morning and my husband was just like exhausted because he's been taking care of this baby alone. And we had some help that was supposed to come and everybody flaked. And so he was just doing the parenting thing 24 hours a day. And I was exhausted because I just had this shoot back to in-person flying, trying to do all the logistics. And I think it was, like that day I got back and I had just flown on a red eye and I needed a nap. And Sean was like, I need a break to go to the bathroom. Like it was very hard for us to just give each other a little bit of like space because I think we both felt like I need a break really bad. I need to sit down. And that's like the hardest thing about being a parent. Like there are no breaks.
Shout out to single parents out there, by the way. Like it's so hard when you have the ability to even trade off with somebody, and to be a single parent right now, it's I can't even imagine.
Yeah, no, my mom was a single parent and we were just talking. I was just talking with Senator Murray before we started the interview. We were just talking about how I never had to clean my room, but I had to have like paths through the mess. So if there was a fire, I could like get out the window or get out the door. Like I don't know how single parents do it. And like, I love my mom and I can't believe she did that.
Ideally with help from the government is how they should do it. The support from the government.
Single parents making $50K are spending 1/3 of their income on childcare. That's preposterous. And especially when you get into dealing with like toddlers and pre-Ks where they're 3 and 4 and they have opinions and they want to talk and you hear a noise in the other room while you're trying to do something. Like at least when you have an infant, you can just prop them up and put a couple pillows around them. You put that baby safety pillow for it so they don't roll off the couch. Am I talking too much?
I'm going to say, maybe you should hand off most of the responsibility to your partner because pillow forts, I don't know. I don't know if that's...
A pillow fort is a secure and stable form of childcare in the home.
Maybe a little less hands-on. Maybe
until the baby can roll over and crawl. All right?
Okay. We'll discuss offline.
Welcome back to Beyond the Child Care, the new podcast where we debunk all of the child care needs that you believe. Well, I would love to continue this conversation, but alas, we are out of time, ladies. Thank you all so much for what you do for women, first and foremost. But of course, you all are my colleagues and coworkers, and I love you both. And thank you for going beyond the scenes and hopefully educating some men. If you're a man and you're listening to this right now, text your woman and say thank you. That's it. Don't even say for what. Just say thank you.
And call your mother. Thank you, Roy. We love you.
Yeah. Thank you, Roy.
I was thinking about I need to call my mom.
Everybody, all of us will get off. We'll call our moms. Everybody watching this, get off. Call your mom. She did a lot.
That's all the time we have for today. But hopefully by now, we've taken you beyond the scenes. See you next week. Well, talk to you next week. Well, unless you're watching the video. You get what I mean. Next week, we'll do it again.